This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Now you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Flynn to look ahead to Moycullen's Connacht semi-final this weekend coming up against Leitrim Gaels. They got the job done at the weekend against Shamrock Gaels. Alan, first off, it was professional enough by Moycullen. Obviously, there was challenges going down to Tubbercurry at the weekend, but they got the job done.
They did, yeah, and they looked, as you said, they probably knew that the game that they were going into and the ground they were going into was going to be tough. And I suppose a lot of it I felt really was going to be from a psychological point of view that they were in the right space. And just kind of meet that challenge early on and not allow Shamrock Gaels any oxygen really in terms of confidence. And they got off to a good start. In fairness to Shamrock Gaels, I thought, after 10, 15 minutes, maybe they settled a bit, You could see that they were nervous and you could see that they maybe weren't as sharp as Moycullen early on, but they settled into it. But they needed to nail all their chances, Paul, and I felt that they were kind of just leaving. They're turning over the ball. Obviously, a lot of this was down also to the intensity that Moycullen were bringing to the game, but they were leaving chances behind, and you certainly couldn't be doing that against Moycullen. The ground conditions I thought were tough enough too. Like, it was heavy going, but the conditioning of Moycullen, the physicality of Moycullen. I think it was probably a case of just wearing Shamrock Gaels down and their challenge, and eventually they kind of went off comfortable enough, really, I thought.
Is an element for Moycullen sort of I know it's probably an easy thing to say, but sort of the shackles are off, the pressure's off, the release valve is off from that Galway title?
Yeah, but I think that's, and I think in fairness that's the case in a lot of, for most teams, that might have had, they're looking really to win their county. But teams know each other so well, Paul, that even though teams might go in, be it Moycullen or a Salthill, I suppose particularly the top four teams in Galway at the moment, I think would be recognised. Corofin and Tuam to go along with the other two. There's teams know each other so well, and there's always an element of caution, coming up against local rivals and so on. So to get over that, and then in fairness, to win a Galway championship is not an easy thing to do any year. So to win that championship, you also had on the back of maybe losing the previous two championships for Moycullen as well. So I would say that, considering that they had a run at it a few years ago as well, and they won the Connacht championship, it's probably something they want to replicate. And they also know that they have a squad and a caliber of player that can challenge. There's probably, it's very different. You can see this around the country as well for teams maybe that have won their first championship. That it isn't easy. I'm sure it's not something that's by design, but it's certainly a lot more difficult for clubs like that to kind of change their mindset and start thinking about winning a provincial or even winning a couple of games in their province after maybe winning a championship for the first time, or in a long time. So Moycullen have moved on from that place. They're a more mature team now, that they know that there's another opportunity here, another road that they can go down, and I've no doubt that they will give that a right crack.
Yeah, even the last day, I think by the third quarter they're 14-18 ahead, but the way they obviously finished the game against Shamrock Gaels, winning out 120-19. Was chatting about him last week on the podcast, but Desi Kennedy's performance again, 110 at the weekend.
Absolutely, and at this time of the year, free takers is so important. I think there was maybe 7 or 8 of those points from frees, and in testing conditions, ground conditions, as I say, that are difficult to get your footing and stuff, and they all have to be put away. And then obviously his scores from play were excellent as well. But he was well served as well by the players out the field. They won an amount of possession around the middle of the field. I thought Niall Walsh was excellent as well. The McDonagh lads inside were good. So they had a lot of, like, Sean Kelly was absolutely exceptional. In terms of winning breaking ball, his positioning, I thought particularly was excellent on where the ball was going to land from a break, winning that ball, breaking from there, and. So, as any inside forward will tell you, Paul, they're only as good as the ball that they're being given. So he got a lot of good ball being put into him, but he looked sharp, he looked lively. I thought his cuts and his movement off the ball was very, very good, and when he got the chances, he took them.
Yeah, as you're talking there, there's clearly 110, Fionn McDonagh 4 points, Niall Walsh 2 points, Johnny Maloney a point as well. A real spread of scores, but good to see that Fionn McDonagh, maybe he found the county final maybe a bit difficult to get the scores, but like him even getting 4 points is going to be huge for his confidence. It was probably his first start at Connacht Championship level too.
Exactly, yeah, and for any player, they need a few matches to get up to speed. And he got I thought he started very well too, Paul. So I thought his confidence was probably building early in the game. Physically, he looked to have an edge on the man he was on. It looked as if they would put the wing back, Shamrock Gaels wing back into the corner on him. But he was always getting a step on him, and he's getting his hand around and getting in close to the goal, and he was making it very difficult for his man. But his balance is very good for a big man. That's one thing I noticed about him. In testing conditions and underfoot conditions that were difficult. I thought his close control was really, really good. And one of the things that even from the county final, I felt maybe he had signposted his shots a few times in the county final. A little bit, kind of got blocked down a couple of times. But in the game the last day, he seemed to, disguise those shots and play with the ball a little bit more and draw his man onto his other side. And I think that worked very well for him.
It's a design of the Moycullen group as well. Peter Cook obviously wasn't there. I think he was back in the States. Carl Clancy was saying after Neil Mulcahy is in Australia at the minute, but there was no major fuss about it. It was just get on with it.
Yeah, they're probably in that place, and I'd say, a team of that experience and that maturity as well. These things will be well discussed in advance, Paul, and they probably knew that the lads would be away, and that's it's next man up, and they have a very strong squad, and you like Charlie Cox there coming on. Sure, he'd be on any other club team in Galway. So fine player, one captain Moycullen Miners there a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, was standout player in that club championship, minor championship. So that's the quality of player they have, and I'm sure they'd love to have Mulcahy and Cook, but who's to know? Maybe they'll have them again down the road.
Obviously, they were there in 2022, but do you think the confidence of getting a win away from home heading into this weekend, do you think that'll stand to Moycullen heading into this weekend?
It will. I think I think the biggest thing really, Paul, is the fact that it's a case of it really puts a line under the win of the county championship, and this new road has started last weekend, and they go down, do a job. It's never easy to go away from home. Particularly, I suppose in a club ground, essentially, you know what I mean. Tubbercurry, you have kind of taken over there from Markfish Park at the moment, but it would be a lot tighter ground. It'd be maybe a little bit more unfamiliar to the Galway players. So to get that win, and now all of a sudden the Connacht Championship is really up and running, and they can look forward to the next game.
The turnaround, the 7 days, is it a challenge?
Yeah, challenge. I would say. But I think in the circumstances of winning the game quite comfortably, the last quarter, if the last quarter was a big challenge in terms of the intensity and stuff, and players going to the well, I think it had been a bigger issue. But I think in fairness, the fact that they were fairly comfortable, they were able to take off a couple of players as well before the end of the game. I think, yeah, and in fairness, the lads as well they've been through this, they've played be it extra times or replays and kind of championship matches before. So it's not something that's brand new to them either. So and I think they're in a place as well where they would have been, looking forward to playing this game and hoping that they would win and planning for the following week. Like that's the level that a team like that would be at. That you'd always be thinking about the what ifs, and one of the what ifs, and that one would be, we win this game, what's our plan for next week? And I've no doubt that they had that looked after.
Not that Moycullen say this openly, but to have Ballina and Bridges on the other side.
What?
It does it. Do you think it maybe stands to them? Obviously, there's still going to be a massive challenge against Leitrim Gaels, but when you have, I suppose, those
Yeah.
two teams battling it out this weekend now.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And I'd be looking forward to that game actually, Ballina and Bridges as well. I think it'll be a good game, and but no doubt, like they're two big teams playing against each other. No doubt they'll bring each other on as well. But I suppose I know it sounds a bit cliche, but like Moycullen really, that's a draw. That's the draw that was made. That's how it came out. They will have to look after Leitrim Gaels this weekend to get the opportunity to play one of those other two teams in the final. And I'd say, it is what it is in many ways. I suppose maybe would it have been a tougher draw if they had to play Ballina in round one and Bridges in round two and play a different team in round three. Of course it would, but it is what it is. And but I think anything less than the 100% focus on who you're playing next, you could get caught a little bit. You know what I mean? Looking over your shoulder or looking at who comes out of the other semi-final.
You obviously been with St Mary's in Leitrim the last few years. Would you come up against Leitrim Gaels this year?
Yeah, we played them in a group game, in their own grounds. We would have played them a few times. Well, I suppose every year really, in terms of we played them last year as well in a quarterfinal. We bet them in the quarterfinal. Would have played them each year, I suppose, in the senior league, and they're definitely a different animal this year. So obviously it's well, I suppose, noted that the Jones lads joined them this year. Ryan Garvin and Conal from Derry Donnelly, and they're extremely good footballers. They're big, strong lads. They would have, pretty sure that Ryan would have been captain of at least 5 or 6 of those championships in Fermanagh, an outstanding midfielder for Fermanagh himself. So Garvin would be playing full forward for Fermanagh for the last couple of years, and Conal, would have been on and off the county panel, but would have been a regular starter for Derry Donnelly. The other thing to note here is that the three of them would be well over the 6'2", 6'3" mark. Big, strong guys. So you can imagine when those three guys came into the team, and particularly with the new rules as well, Paul. They came into the team, serious leadership qualities in particularly in Ryan, who would have been. He ended up actually last year being a selector and coach with Stephen Poacher for the Leitrim seniors. So his first involvement, I suppose, would have been involved there with the Leitrim under 20s. He has a pharmacy business there close to Leitrim Gaels, and then transferred along with the two brothers, and made a huge impact on
That's what's
their
brought
team.
them to Leitrim, is it?
Yeah, well, I think there was a bit of a falling out, I think, with Derry
Okay.
Donnelly as well. But in fairness, Ryan does have a business there close to the town. They live in the town. So anyway, they ended up playing this year with Leitrim Gaels, and were made a huge difference. But I think the other thing as well that needs to be noted as well is that Donald Casey, who is like an excellent footballer, like he would be a Leitrim senior player for the last few years. Probably Leitrim's best player, I would say, overall best player, defender. Would have picked up a few injuries over the last couple of years that would have kept him out of club championships, actually. So he wouldn't have played club championship for the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Or if he did, maybe one game. So he was back also with them this year. played centre half back normally. A couple of games he did a marking job in the full back line, but it's like an excellent player, really, really
Yeah, played
physically
Sigerson pretty
strong.
well as well.
Yeah, really, really top player now. Will be on any county squad. And David Brune, then, who was Leitrim senior football captain maybe 3 years ago, he moved to Australia. He came home for the last couple of rounds of the championship, county semi-final, county final. He went straight into the team, and again was really good. So it was like, for I suppose, versus 2024, automatically they were getting 5 what I would call intercounty level footballers. Um, and then on top of that, then I suppose you would have another 2 or 3 guys that would have been in and around county squads. So they ended up moving to another level entirely in terms of their ability, their physical power, and were fairly dominant, to be honest, in the club championship in Leitrim this year. Whereas maybe up to that point, like they had never won a Leitrim championship up to this year. So they would have been favourites to win the championship from the outset, based on, I suppose, how things were progressing over the year and the fact that they got the 3 transfers in. But in fairness to them, they fairly went about it emphatically. And like in the county semi-final, Moycullen, who were going for 3 in a row this year, they bet Moycullen very, very well. I have it written down here. It was 4-14 to 3-7, but like the score at half, like the game was virtually over, Paul, at half time. Like Moycullen, to their credit, they scored 3 goals in the second half, but Moycullen hadn't scored in the first half. Now there was an absolute storm, weather-wise. It was a very strong breeze, and Leitrim Gaels really came out of the blocks, and they dominated around the middle of the field, which is something they had done for the full Leitrim Championship, because they were playing with a bank of 4 across the middle of the field, all guys of 6'2", 6'3", and were dominating possession. And then they had their 2-point kickers in the Jones boys, and they had a couple of very good free takers in young Goldrick there. He was playing Stephen Goldrick, was playing corner forward, so he's a very, very good free taker. So they were getting out good leads, and then they were tactically very savvy as well. So and then they kind of got on top of Ballinamore in the county final. Ballinamore had played Noel in the county final the previous year, so we're hoping to try and get over the line. But they got a very important goal. David Regan is his name. He played corner forward. Got a very important goal kind of midway through the game, and they never looked back from there. And they won their first championship.
Obviously, you mentioned there about them getting stronger with the Joneses coming in, and 1 or 2 Leitrim players who aren't fit in previous years that are fit now. Was it coming for a while before that, or was it sort of out of nowhere?
Well, it's I suppose the Leitrim Gaels club would be a relatively new club. It was formed in the 90s, the late 90s, and so you can imagine, Paul, they would have had a lot of building to do in terms of building up numbers to play. Their focus, I suppose, at the start would have been underage, but they're just on the outskirts of Carrick-on-Shannon. So they'd be good friends with the St. Mary's lads, and they'd just be on the outskirts of Carrick-on-Shannon. They would have focused obviously on their numbers at underage. They started as a junior, I think it was junior B actually, and they won that, one junior A, one intermediate in a period of maybe 10 to 15 years, pretty short. I'm pretty sure they got to. They won the intermediate around one of the COVID years there, so not that long ago. And then they were being seniors. So I suppose, like a lot of senior teams that come up for intermediate, maybe more the first couple of years has been around establishing themselves. But I can't overemphasize the I suppose, to be honest with you, the biggest thing really that the Jones lads brought probably was a confidence within the group that they could actually really go and challenge. The 2 Flynn lads, Aidan Flynn, who would have played with Leitrim, Jack Flynn, his brother, would be on the senior panel. Like they'd have been stalwarts there for them for a good few years. And I suppose to see these guys coming in, seeing Donald Casey and David Broom, the likes of these guys coming back from injury and being away, There was no doubt that there was an element of like this could be the year, and they grew in confidence. They had a couple of big wins. I suppose St Mary's, who they won the championship in what year was it? 22. Mohill had won the next two, 23, 24. So they had beaten those two teams, and they probably felt like that there was, they were on the right road, and they were on the right road, really.
Between obviously you've been involved in the Galway Championship, Alan, and you've been involved in the Leitrim Championship in the last few years.
Mm.
Do you find the standard from Galway to Leitrim big, or do you actually find that it's not as big as some people might think?
There is a gap, Paul. There's no question about that. And I suppose where is the gap? The gap is within those teams that are operating at the higher levels. You take those teams that get into the county semi-final stages, particularly, and maybe sometimes in the quarters, but particularly the top four teams in Galway. I think a lot of it is to do with just the strength of numbers, the quality. Like just to take Sean Kelly as an example, right? Like his bar is so high, and it's helped to get even higher on the basis that he's playing with a team like Galway that are playing Division 1 football. He's coming up against the best players in the country. That raises everyone's level. So Sean comes back to Moycullen, and they have a lot more than Sean Kelly that have played county, but they come back and he drives that level. Players that are kind of looking up towards him and trying to reach the levels that he's at, he's lifting all the boats. So and the same would be applied, I suppose, to Corofin over the years when they had Dylan and Kieran Malloy and so on, Gary Syson when he was playing there. These guys coming back, and they were so driven as well to raise standards. So I think certainly the one thing I would have been very interested, like I'm led to believe, Paul, that Leitrim Gaels are going to be missing a couple of their players, right? Casey and Brune. I'm pretty sure that David Brune has gone back to Australia, and I'm told that Casey is injured. Now, if those two guys are out, like that's just they're just not replaceable, and that'll be the same for any club team, to be honest, because they're really good footballers.
Yeah, they're not exactly lads in the corners or wings. They're just
no, like you're talking number 3 and number 6, and serious physical power as well. I would have been very interested to see the game, Paul, if Leitrim Gaels had everyone playing, everyone fit. I think Moycullen would still win the game. I think that they would have probably pushed it. I think Leitrim Gaels would have pushed them. Certainly physically, and certainly on the kickouts contests around the middle of the field. But I think without those guys, like a club in Leitrim or a club in these counties that I suppose are tight on numbers, they have to have everyone. They can't have injuries. They can't have players going away, and even at that, you can yourself, like at the end of the day, like Leitrim are Division 4 county. Galway Division 1 and pushing really hard up there. The clubs that are operating in the top 3 or 4, you would expect that there would be a gap, and as I say, I think there will be. You'll see that gap coming the next day again.
There's a particular Galway man, obviously involved in the Leitrim Gaels backroom team. He's defeated Moycullen in the last 2 county finals.
Yeah.
Obviously, he'll have quite a strong insight for them this weekend.
You will, and it'll be a big plus for Leitrim Gaels. I think Kevin Johnson there involved in the last 2 or 3 months, wherever it is involved, will give them a good insight in terms of what to expect, the areas that Moycullen are going to be strong in. I'm sure, like he was at the game the last day, doing commentary on the game the last day with Moycullen and Shamrock Gaels, so he will have seen a few things. Not that I'm sure he won't have seen anything that he wasn't aware of anyway, but I think the biggest challenge that Leitrim Gaels will find is the pace and the intensity that Moycullen will bring to this game early on. And with all due respects to all of the teams in Leitrim, that will be something that they will not have been exposed to. Certainly that sustained kind of pressure the physical. The one thing that was a standout feature of the Leitrim Gaels team this year against all the other Leitrim teams was their physical power, physical strength around the middle of the field. So now they're going to meet a team at the weekend that will be able to match them and maybe outdo them around there. And but I will say this, that maybe the fact that the I suppose it has been highlighted maybe in social media and stuff about the Jones lads coming in and all that. It might prep the Moycullen lads to be kind of just be on guard. But if they had come into this game not ready, and particularly if those two guys hadn't been away, I think Leitrim Gaels would have asked them a few questions. But it's just the experience of playing in the big games, the quality. Like for instance, if Peter Cook was to rock up like this weekend, Sean Kelly, Desi Keneally, Neil Walsh, the McDonagh lads, Johnny Maloney, like you're talking serious quality there. I like young O'Connor and wing back, the last Sean O'Connor, thought he was excellent as well, brought a great pace to it. So like it's you don't necessarily say that a team is not great just because they lose to Moycullen. Like Moycullen are a very, very strong team playing in a very strong club championship. So they will go out. I think they'll be very professional in how they go about it, get the job done, and then look forward to a Connacht final.
Have you seen Moycullen involved this year?
Say it again, Paul.
Have you seen Moycullen involved? Obviously, under the new game, they're obviously well set up, and I still think they're excellent at keeping the ball for long periods
Yeah.
and working that score. And I think one thing about them is, I think since the Duke game, the way they're finishing games this year is very impressive.
I think their strength is still in terms of their possession game and running that ball. And they've got so much power. Their lines of running is very, very good. And I suppose when you have someone like Sean and Sean O'Connor, Sean Kelly and Sean O'Connor come from the half back line, it does give them a lot of power and acceleration coming from midfield. Neil Walsh is a good man to carry the ball, so is Maloney. So like they probably don't kick the ball as much as maybe you'd expect, considering that they have two very, very big, strong guys in the full forward line. But to be fair, Paul, they're playing to something that has worked very, very well for them over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And maybe it's something as well that they're, that they have in the back pocket that, and that they can work on, that they deliver a couple of balls inside. It's probably something I would suggest that maybe they will be and maybe will require to use in the kind of championship or going forward after that, if they can get past that kind of final, about kind of maybe just moving the ball through the foot that little bit more. Because I think if they did, they have a couple of players there that can win possession, win primary ball, and then they will have the runners coming off them. So in terms of evolving, I suppose I think they've stuck to what they're very good at: winning possession around the middle of the field, being very, very physical and hard running. Running to the end. You very rarely see them clogging up space. They use the pitch very, very well. They move the ball very, very well. And so yeah, I don't see them haven't changed a huge amount. I'm sure there's bits and pieces that we can't see ourselves that they know about, but I think that they're very, very good at what they've always done.
You've obviously worked with Brian Roach quite a bit. He's involved in the S&C side of
Yeah.
things. Have you seen? You're probably seeing, I suppose, his imprint on it as well, are you?
Yeah, but sure. Listen, Brian is very, very good at what he does. S&C coach. Obviously, the fact that he has played the game as well, I think, is a huge advantage. Like you see a lot of people that are involved in the S&C side of it that maybe haven't played and get a feel for it. And I think like he played this year as well. So he's some man for getting out there at his age, but he's in great shape. So he was out there, and the reason I say that is just with the new rules and stuff. I think it's an advantage to him as well to be able to see physically how that feels. But like he's been involved with me for the last few years. with different teams. He's involved with Offaly senior hurlers and Moycullen. So he's got a good understanding of the different levels and what it takes to perform at the different levels. And I think the feedback in Moycullen is good, and I'm delighted for him, really.
I get the sense the way you're talking there, you expect Mike Cullen to have too much, but obviously it's the way they're going. Shamrock Gales, Leitrim Gales, winning 2 games in Connacht and going in, and then a 2 week break until a final against Ballina or Bridges would be a perfect position for Mike Cullen to be in.
Yeah, it's a lovely run in. It's a lovely run in, and I don't think that they picked up anything and any major knocks or anything the last day either. So you're probably talking maybe one decent session during this week and let it run into Sunday. I think they'll just be too strong without kind of repeating myself again, Paul. I just think that they'll have too much. I think, in fairness to Leitrim Gaels and with Ryan Jones involved, who's a good head and tactically astute. I think he will, they will have a few things up their sleeve, and with Kevin Johnson involved as well, giving them a bit of a background on Moycullen. But I think they will just grind them down, and they will be more efficient in front of the post than Leitrim Gaels will. By the way, if Moycullen have a day where they're lacking a bit of discipline, they're giving away frees, they will be punished, because Garvin Jones is there to kick frees from distance. Stephen Goldrick is very good from frees from closer in. So they're pretty efficient in terms of nailing the chances that they're being given on the frees side of it. But I think Moycullen will be too strong. Then they will have the 2 week break into a kind of final. And all bets are off then, because Ballina Bridges, I think, will be a very, very tight game. Bridges, I suppose, have a lot of pace. Lovely forward line, beautiful play. I've actually seen them a few times this year, and their forward play is absolutely incredible. Ballina probably a different type of team, more physical team. A lot of very powerful runners from deep, and can do very, very well on kickouts. Albeit they'll probably agree that they were lucky enough to win the county final. But they stayed in it, and they kept at it, and they kicked some fabulous scores to win it. So maybe they'll see this as an opportunity to progress when maybe in other years they would have been gone.
How big, Alan, do you think it'd be for a Galway club to, I suppose, win a Connacht championship? Moycullen actually, amazingly, the last club to get their hands on a Connacht championship curve and beaten in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's always the one thing I always find about that, is I think it lifts the whole county championship if a team goes on and they win their provincial championship, because I think there's an element within all the other clubs then to kind of feel that they're playing within a club championship that is at a good to very high level. So, for instance, I suppose a Salthill or a Tuam or Corrafin and so on, and working it all the way down, would feel, okay, well, the team that we were up against or we played against went on and won the provincial championship, and so we're playing a club championship that is at a very, very good level, and they can use that as a marker in terms of going forward. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It brings a confidence to that, and I think it works the opposite way as well. If your county championship team is getting knocked out of the provincial championship very early, or particularly on a regular basis, it can happen to anyone, but on a regular basis, getting knocked out early and maybe not performing, it does ask questions about the level of the club championship. So I think Moycullen are in a very, very good place to progress, really.
Just a word on Caltra the weekend, beaten by Kilmeena after extra time, 121 to 21 points. In fairness, I'd say there's a lot of people thinking from Galway with the experience Kilmeena had
Yeah.
in the Intermediate Championship a couple of years ago and the latter stages of the All Ireland Junior Championship, that they'd have too much. But in fairness, you have to give massive credit to Caltra with the fight they put up at the weekend.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't expect anything else from Caltra. And they again, they died with their boots on. As you rightly said there, Paul, Kilmeena they've kind of gone through this process a couple of times now. in the Connacht club at various levels, and have a lot of good footballers. I've seen Kilmeena a couple of times, a lot of good young footballers, and I think you'll see them improving and getting better as well in the Mayo Club Championship over the next few years, because they have a lot of good underage players coming up. Um, but Caltra did well. They're probably just, obviously they're going to be disappointed that they maybe didn't take another step, but they'll learn from it and they'll get better from it, and they'll know that. I think the biggest challenge now and it's not just for Caltra, but for teams going forward, with the quality of the senior championship, is to make sure that when you go up, that you're ready for that level and that step up that's coming, and really get, I suppose, try and drive your standards up, so that you don't end up in a situation where you're under pressure to stay senior the following year again.
Alan Naughton, 17 points at the weekend for Caltra. Maybe we've said it a few times, maybe that Galway were probably looking for that next forward to come through and make the breakthrough, but he hitting scores like that, he's still only 24. He has to be someone that Port Joyce will have to be thinking of.
Absolutely, it's some kicking. It's absolutely amazing, really. I saw young McInerney there from Éire Óg down in Clare scored something like 16, and everyone was talking about it. So it's an incredible total, and it's fantastic. Like I was actually talking to Brian here, Brian Roach, about Alan Naughton, and he remembers that he kind of came into the Caltra team 5 years ago or so, and straight away looked like a player that could do something, had a quality about him straight away. And obviously over the 5 years he has progressed, he's got physically stronger, and now he's become a serious marksman. So I'm sure he'll get an opportunity, and that will be a process as well, Paul, you know what I mean, because obviously from intermediate up to intercounty senior football, and particularly at Division 1 level, is a huge step up. But even if he's in around that and he's training, and he gets an opportunity to show himself, that'll improve him, and he'll be able to bring that back to his club. And who knows, over the next couple of years, maybe we'll see him stepping up to the intercounty level as well.
It was just unfortunate, wasn't it, the way the Kilmeena goal came off the post and lands down
Yeah.
to one of their forwards. It's always a sucker punch to concede a goal in extra time.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because it was a very similar. Just while we're on Leitrim Gaels today, it was just a carbon copy of the goal that Leitrim Gaels scored against Ballinamoor in the county final, where a ball is kicked for it as a shot, hits the post, lands into someone's hands, back of the net, and it was something similar the last day. So they're always like, whatever about conceding a goal where the opposition do something maybe special, little 1-2, and your man buries it. And when something like that happens and you've done a lot of good work, I suppose you could say maybe that there's a little switch off or whatever, but it can also happen where the ball just falls into the hands, and in this case into the right man's hands for Kilmeena, and he puts it away. And I was unlucky, but it wasn't the end of Caltra either. They kept at it, and but I think Kilmeena, maybe their experience and I suppose that the experience of being there a few times probably counted a little bit the last day.
Yeah, it probably caught up then maybe with Caltra. I suppose Sean Kane was the obvious one they
Yeah,
lost throughout the year,
yeah.
and a couple of injuries like that. But it still probably bodes pretty well, as we mentioned, for heading up to senior now.
Oh, it does, and I know from talking to a good few of the Caltra lads over the last few months, um, that in fairness, they see the bigger picture as well. It's not just based on this year and this year's team. They understand that they're going to try and build underage, and the underage teams in Caltra over the last few years have been getting very strong, and they've been competing at a very, very good level. And I think that's only going to go one way. So it's like any team. If you're solely based on the first 20, and you're not thinking about what's coming after it, it's not going to last very long. So I think not alone have Caltra gone senior, but they have a good crop of players and good development going on behind it, and that will sustain itself then for a long time.
Just a word, Castle are obviously playing the Leitrim champions Ahavas in the
Mm.
junior semi-final. It's a bit of a strange one. they're going to obviously be in junior next year, but I suppose if they can sort
Yeah.
of park the disappointment now, there's an opportunity for a Connacht final.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is a difficult one in fairness because I suppose I'm sure that was their main target for the year, and it is. And I was. It's unfortunate that they didn't win it, to be honest, Paul, because I think, the first team, and I suppose in fairness to County Board, they're given the first team clubs every chance really, to get into that position. But obviously, it shows the quality as well of Clare Galway and the amount of numbers they have, and. But yeah, so listen, I haven't seen Ahavas play this year, but I'm sure that they will ask a couple of questions. But I would expect Karen that if they can get into the right frame of mind and get over this one, then maybe the disappointment might dissipate a little bit, and they'd be able to have a go at it.
Yeah, that's in Ballymore on
Mm,
Sunday at 1:30. Um, just something else. The FPD is obviously returning this year. It's a bit of a different structure. So Galway are going to play London, and they're going to play Leitrim in the first two round games. And then if they win those two games, if they're at the top of the table, they'll be top two is FPD League final. Third and fourth is into a Shield final, and fifth and sixth is into a play final. Um, it's it's a bit different, and I suppose funny to nearly think of shield and plates at this
yes.
level. But
Yeah.
what do you make of the restructure?
Yeah, well, I suppose they're trying to maybe or keep have games for everyone, even if you're out. I suppose if you're not in the cup, you're in the plate, and if you're not in the plate, you're in the shield or whatever. So, I suppose there's guaranteed games. I suppose the biggest thing. I suppose from a management point of view, it helps in terms of planning those 3 weeks before the National Football League starts. Um, the only thing I would say is that considering the opposition, with due respects to Leitrim, they're playing Division 4. So for the first team, let's call it Galway's first team, to be prepared for the National League, you'll probably end up playing a challenge game. And
Yeah,
uh,
like will Galway just use the development
oh,
squad
they
now for
will.
this?
There's no
Yeah,
question that they will, and that's what they should do because that's the opportunity, really, for let's say young Nocton and these lads in Caltra to play against the Leitrim and play against London and see can they play, cut the mustard at that stage, and if they can, maybe then you get the call up to the next batch, and I think that's a good progression. So that's probably what's going to happen, Paul. And in fairness, Galway are in the luxury position probably of having the numbers to do that, where they'd be able to put out a team in the FPD and maybe play a challenge game on the same weekend against a team that would be playing Division 1 or Division 2 National Football League. So it gets a lot of players out in the field. Uh, Helps the manager, I suppose, and the management team get prepared for the National League and see if there's any other new faces or guys that are looking to make a breakthrough.
from what we heard, it doesn't really seem like there's going to be any retirement. Nothing official announced yet,
Mm-hmm.
anyways. But would you see a changing in the guard with the squad this year, or do you think it'll be more of the same?
I say it'll be something similar, Paul, by the looks of it. There might be a little bit of a changeover in terms of a couple of the positions and an opportunity. Like the likes of Daniel Flaherty, let's say, right? Just off the top of my head, Daniel Flaherty. I thought he was really really good in the last few games of the club championship. Has been kind of knocking about in terms of getting game time in the league. Can he make a push now to become a regular starter? And by the way, that's not an easy thing. Like see, like this is a very high level that these guys are
Yeah.
playing at, and to kind of if you're in the half back line, you could potentially be up against a Sean Kelly, potentially up against a Liam Silk, a Dylan McHugh, guys that are very established. John Maher's in the midfield. Like, who's going to come in as a young lad to try and take his place? So it's not as if this team is in flux where there's constant change in the team. It's been a very settled Galway team over the last few years. A team that has got contested 2 All-Ireland finals. So for a young fella to try and break into that, it has to be seen as a progressive thing. Can you end up getting 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Can you make an impact when you come in? Um, and it develops from there. Matthew Thompson is maybe someone different. He has big impact
He
quickly.
looks like he's going to be gone now. He's
Well,
going.
that's yeah.
Yeah,
I'm hearing that, and that'd be a dreadful
yeah.
blow to the squad if he is. I suppose time will tell. Maybe they'll do something on that, Paul. I don't know. Like, is there a case that maybe he could be away for a short period and then get back in? Who's to know? You know, fingers crossed. But like I thought he was outstanding, and even there for Salt Hill, like he showed. You know, it doesn't always transfer. You know the way sometimes maybe a guy that has done really well for the county finds it hard to replicate that coming back to the club championship. The year feels so long, but like he looked he's doing it effortlessly at the moment. To be honest, looks very composed and classy on the ball. The point I'm making is not, you know, you won't get too many like that can do that can just come into the county senior team and kind of turn it on and be able to play at that levels that quickly. For the majority of players, it takes that little bit of time, and you know, I'm no doubt the management, but we as supporters just need to give the players that time to do that as well. You know.
Are you sort of looking for the players who've been there now for maybe 3, 4, 5 years to push some of the more experienced players out of the way? That now it's maybe their time to cement their spot.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and every year there's a chance that, you know, someone will get. I think it's all about getting a bit of a run at it as well. Like, but that comes from. So how do you get a run at it? It's how you're showing in training, and that you're playing well enough, and you're showing a desire to get in there. And when you get your chance, be it in an FPD match or at the start of the league, because the one thing I would say, Paul, is it's all in the favour now of momentum, for a player to be playing well. So, for instance, you get into the first game in the FPD, right? To Mayo, I think, or in the league, I should say, Paul. Is it?
Mayo, yeah,
Yeah. So they're
24th
playing
and
Mayo
5th of January, yeah.
in the first round, the National Football League. Let's say you play well in that game, and now all of a sudden your league matches are coming thick and fast over the next 9 weeks to play 7 matches, and that'll draw you into the kind of championship. From there, you're into the round robin series and the All Ireland. So, like, if you're going well, um, you know, the games themselves will nearly keep you on the team rather than you know, like one time there used to be maybe 3 or 4 weeks between matches, and you would have to be playing very well in training and doing things in training to keep yourself on the team. In some ways now, a lot of the heavy work is done, you know, prior to the league, and so, you know, you might get one good session there between league matches. But if you've played a very, very good game in the National Football League on Saturday or Sunday, it's a very good chance that outside of injury, you're going to be starting again the following week. You know, so getting in there at the start is never a bad thing, and if you can keep it, sustain it, then.
Yeah, I was just looking at the league schedule. So it's Mayo first, then Galway go to um Armagh, then they go to Kerry. So that's 2 games back to back away. Then it's Roscommon, then they're away to uh Donegal, and they're finishing then with Dublin. Like it's quite a tough schedule this year. A lot of
Yeah,
tough away games there.
yeah, the away games are tough, but the not like the Division One series is tough, and there's, you know, obviously the best teams are in there, so it asks a lot of players, and that's why they need this time. You know, coming up, I suppose over the next few weeks now, they'll start to ramp it up, and particularly, you know, those 3 or 4 weeks before the championship or the league starts, to try and get themselves ready. Because if you look at the schedule, like, you're talking seven games in 9 weeks. So really, the break periods are recovery, okay, um, and then you're into the kind of championship. You might get a little break there between the end of the league and the kind of championship, depending, I suppose, on the draw and stuff like that. And then again, depending on how you go in the kind of championship, to the start of the round robin series in the All Ireland. So, like, the downtime, the time for actually, you know, getting back from injury, getting fit, as we call it one time, you know, doing a block of training. There isn't a huge amount of time, Paul, for that. And so the
They throw
challenge
in
now,
Sigerson at the start of the year as well.
exactly, exactly. So throw in that, throw in the fact that, you know, the club season now comes right into into November. Um, the gap, the period there of maybe a 6 or 8 week block, you're probably talking just before Christmas and just after Christmas. and really then you're up and running. And it's about then managing players, working tactically on things between matches. But a lot of the heavy lifting needs to be done. That's why players are in such supreme condition now, and you don't see too many guys like in the off season falling off the trolley too much, because they can't afford to. Number one, and number two, there is not much downtime, and that's why I suppose it takes a certain mindset to be a county footballer now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like you won't feel that coming around either with the inter-county season. But that's all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks a million to Alan for coming on to this week's podcast.
Thanks, Paul.